Oh, it is a lovely, lovely day in Northern California here, and a lovely day to address the last item that came in my delivery the other week. And I got a couple comments about this on that video, and if you don't know what this is a COMM lathe. It's kind of a dinosaur now, because this is used for basically repairing RC rebuildable motors. The basic concept is these rebuildable motors have brushes. All brushed motors have brushes, and the brushes contact a point on the motor shaft here, and that point on the shaft by my sweater cuff is called the commutator, and the commutator gets wear over time. And so what this does is it cuts off the wear and basically makes it so that it's almost like a brand new motor. Now, I saw this pop up on RC Recycler a few weeks ago, and I swiped it up because first off, I had no clue what it was. So I researched it and I figured out what it was, and I was like, oh, that is sick. Like, that is the coolest thing. I had never heard of such a thing. But apparently this was used, or motor lathes were much more common back when racing utilized brushed motors, because apparently racers would see the difference in their motors. After one race, they would give them a turn, or after every one or two races, they cut the commutator. So this is the lathe. We're gonna do some work on that. I also received a handful of tools with it. Over here, I received a bottle of COMM cutting fluid, a brush hood alignment tool. We'll go into that more later or in another video. I think somebody said that this was a Trinity spring thing. Yes, I think that's what they said. This is a spring post nut wrench and 2 motor shafts. This one is an actual motor shaft, and this is a piece of drill rod. Probably high-speed steel, it doesn't say, but it says it's exactly 1/8 of an inch. And these are for a specific purpose as well. They're for aligning the motor can itself. So with that aside, that's the stuff that came with it. But today I want to look at seeing how trued in this thing is, seeing how basically reliable it is to give a nice straight cut. So I've got some feeler gauges here, and I've also got a set of calipers that we're going to use to take a look at this numerically, if you want to put it that way, and see, to basically look at some different things about this. The one thing I do, two most important things, is this cutting bit here, seeing where that is, if it's in the center of the shaft, below the center, or above the center. That's really important. And also if it's cutting straight this way, because it could be cutting, it could be cutting nice and straight, it could be cutting like that, or it could be cutting like that, and I basically just want to know that. How I fix that, I'm not sure, but I just want to basically investigate and see what kind of state this lathe is in before I start using it on crucial motors. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to check the center of the bit to a shaft in the lathe. I've grabbed out a 10/1000 feeler gauge here. The thickness does not matter because we are simply checking for... Okay. So what we're doing, so check this out. So if I'm holding this roughly straight up and down, right? In between the bit and the shaft. And as I push the bit into the shaft, depending on where the bit is centered, it will do different things to this feeler gauge. So right now, it is above center. How much above center that really is, I'm not sure. There are some shims underneath the bit that I can look at maybe removing. But this is a good thing because from what I've read, having your bit above center is always a good thing. Here's a better representation of what I was trying to describe to you, with the bit being above the center line, at the center line, or below the center line, and why the feeler gauge indicates that. So hopefully you guys can wrap your head around that. Alright, so now that we understand what this is telling us, I think I'm going to play with it a little bit, see if I can't get it just a little bit more straight up and down. I don't want it, well, perfectly straight up and down is good too, but I do want it a hair's bit above, but not quite that much. So I'm going to play with it a little bit and I'll come back to you with what I get. So I would say that that's pretty darn good. That's actually almost perfectly straight. I know it looks like it's leaning that way, but the feeler gauge is bent a little bit. And I looked in the instructions. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention this thing did come with instructions. And it said that if it's set properly, the feeler gauge should be straight up and down. They say to use one of the shims that was underneath the bit itself, which I did do, and it looked pretty darn straight up and down. Feeler gauge just gives me a better reference because it's longer. But I'm happy with that, so I think I'm going to leave it there. Next thing we're going to do is check for straightness of the end blocks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a feeler gauge in one side that's a certain thickness that we know will slide down in there well. Then we'll move it across and check it again, and if it's different, we know it's not straight, but if it's the same, we know it's pretty darn good. I mean, alright, so from what I've felt and tested so far, I would say that this thing feels pretty straight. Of course, that's relative, but I would say that it feels about the same in both places, maybe a half a thousandth off. That's probably about all it is. And of course, it's just over that little distance. I mean, if we could measure from here, if we could measure it here and all the way on that side, it would be better. But we can't, just because of the way the lathe is designed. Yeah, I'd say it's probably about a half a thousandth off. So that's good. That is a good sign. Got the bit right where I want it, and this appears to be in there pretty good. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I wasn't pushing down. I don't know. Let me see. Let me see if it's one different. There's a 17. Wiggle it around a little bit. Nope, definitely 16. 17 doesn't fit down in there, so that is great news. That is a very nice find. I'm happy with that, and I'm happy with the way it's set up at the moment. So let's see, why did I get my calipers out? Why did I do that? You know, that's a good question. Why did I get my calipers out? I have no clue. Oh yeah, that's right, I remember now. I wanted to check how high this is on either side. Check the height, and that's let's see, 1.875. Let's check this side. It's 1.888. Let's check this side again. Gotta go back and forth a few times just to see. Yeah, they appear to be within the ballpark of each other. I can't really say because it's hard to get an exact measurement off of it, but just because I can have it tilted this way or whatever, but I'd say it's probably pretty darn close. I mean, yeah, I know, people are going to be yelling at me, that's not close, but, you know, I'm just curious. So, like, I can make it do different measurements. That's the silly things. I can go like that, or I can go like that. It's kind of... Alright, let's go like this. and then drop it down. Yeah, now that I'm doing it like this, yeah, I'm getting about the same. So that's good too. They're not great readings, measurements, but you know, it is what it is. I'd say it's pretty close. So I mean, the next thing, now that I have determined that it's mostly pretty good, I wouldn't say that it's perfect by any means. I'm sure a machinist could probably do a much better job of telling me that my guesstimates are not right. But I think for what it is, it's pretty good. Next thing that I want to do is I have gotten a Castle Creations BEC, and I'm going to use that to hook up to this and run it. I've already tested this, of course, but I figure that while I'm out in the field, I want to be able to run this thing off of a battery. So if I use a battery eliminator circuit, BEC, I'd be able to plug in any voltage battery that I want, and it would just automatically drop down to what I need, and I could run this off of that. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, so here is what I've done. I've put a Dean's connector on the motor side. I've also made this little adapter here that goes from Dean's to JST. Is that what these things are called? I think that's what they're called. The little black servo connectors, that will then plug into my BEC here, which already has the servo connector on it. Like that. And then I just soldered a Dean's connector onto the BEC as well. And I already programmed this in Castle Link on my computer, so it will be outputting 4.8 volts. So let's go ahead and try it, I guess. Okay. Well, that's a problem. Let's see if we can just plug it straight in. If that doesn't work, I'd be surprised. Oh yeah, that's fine. Okay. So something's going on in here. Let me do some troubleshooting and I will come back. Well guys, 24 hours later, and I have still yet to figure out what the problem is. But after lots of deliberation with my dad and a lot of testing and experimentation, I think that this little BEC just ain't enough to power that motor. I think that the startup current needed for that motor is higher than this BEC can put out, even though it's a 10 amp peak. I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure something out, but for now we're just gonna have to use the variable power supply to run the lathe, which is no big deal until I find something else. But I might have a lead. Somebody on RCC has given me a bit of a hint, somewhere new to, or a new path to go look down per se, and so I will check that out. So anyways, let's get back over to the RC bench and finish up getting this thing all tuned in. Alright, so the last thing I want to do to get this thing tuned up is check to see how true this thing is turning. So basically how true it will turn a commutator. This is a armature out of a sealed can motor, so I kind of had to rip the thing apart, and there's no reason to really do anything with this. This is just a test essentially to see how round this thing will cut. So just keep in mind here that I am going to be doing a more in-depth video about COMM cutting later down the line. So I will be explaining more stuff about it then. Alright, there we go. Turn my power supply off there. Like I said, we'll be doing a more in-depth video later on, so don't get worked up. Alright, so where's a rag? I need a rag. Where's a rag? There it is. Off any oil here. Alright. Now, that looks like a much better cut than originally was able to do on this. And I would like to attribute that to the fact, or to the position of the cutting bit, or the lathe bit. And I'm hearing a lot less chatter and stuff too. So, basically my point to that was, I want to basically check one end. See how round it is? Or get a measurement. We're looking at 0.284 there. And 0.284 there. Tiny bit more. But 0.284, let's turn it, try it again. Tiniest little bit under 284. Tiniest bit under 284. Perfect. Awesome. This thing's actually cutting really nice. I am surprised. So, that's gonna be it for this video, you guys. Motor lathe is all tuned up, turning comms nice and straight. So, thank you all so much for watching this video, sticking with me. It was kind of a crazy one. Well, for me at least. It took me like 2 days, and I don't know, my dad and I spent probably 3 hours last night scratching our heads trying to figure out what the heck is wrong with this thing. The other thing I wanted to mention is that these end rests are carbide. I checked that, and that is what they are. They're not aluminum, so if anybody is curious, that's what they are. So, thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you know what? The other thing I didn't mention is what the name of this lathe even is. This is a Team Orion Darren's Quickset lathe. Picked it up on RC Recycler. Might have mentioned it, I forget now. Anyway, enough of that. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment down below, hit that notification button to get notified of future lathe and Galanda related videos, and follow me on Instagram at highway49_RC. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you on the trail.